We talked about a number of things this morning for the retail industry and how the AV industry is serving it, really. One point about the manufacturers, though, interestingly, we're seeing more of manufacturers running closed sessions so we can see what technology is coming down the line. That seems quite an interesting way of exposing their technology to the end user population. How are they communicating with end users, manufacturers? And are they doing it effectively, would you say?
I think it depends on the manufacturer. It depends on the vertical market as well. When you think about retail, I think that a lot of the people that are working in a retail company or organisation are not necessarily that exposed to technology day to day. It is somewhat different to a corporate environment where you've got a lot more video conferencing or presenting technology or desktop sharing kind of technology. So retailers are much more at the coalface, having to engage with customers, guests, and how they are improving that relationship through technology isn't always necessarily front and centre of their mind. We heard today about how actually it's about generating revenue and profit, and it's about engaging people to do that. So I think manufacturers have got a job to do to explain what value their equipment will bring and why retailers should engage with it. And it's about innovation, it's about explaining what technology can do in context of a retail environment, and it's about justifying the cost as well. Sometimes people don't understand the difference between a consumer grade screen, for example, to a commercial grade screen, and I've had countless conversations about I could go down to Dixon's and get a screen for half that cost. Why should I be using XYZ screen instead of the Tottenham Court Road model?
Yes, it's this concept of education which is becoming increasingly more important for LED technology and projection, you name it. So many models about, so many features, and so many different applications that require different types of technology.
And some of it's quite nuanced, isn't it? Some of it's quite niche.
Yes, it is.
I was talking to the DataPath guys, and the challenge of someone like DataPath in this space is to explain the value they bring, which is actually quite a complex technical value, but it's a very significant value that they bring. And that's where integrators and resellers do add some value, and consultants as well. So it's a constant evolving space that's actually getting quicker and more fast-paced, and the challenge to keep on top of that is quite real.
Talking of challenges, I mean, what do you think the retail industry is going to need from AV vendors and over the next couple of years? It's quite a complex picture, isn't it? I mean, the retail market itself is somewhat challenging and very up and down. We're trying to focus this morning on really what requirements, what role technology plays in what retailer needs. It's a very complex picture, isn't it?
I think it's very fragmented.
From the point of the interface between the retailer and the AV supplier, but also in terms of supply, sorting out and understanding the requirements of a very fast-moving, almost amoebic changing nature of the retailer.
I think that the market, the AV market, is fragmented. I think there's an array of manufacturers, and there's also an array of integrators and resellers and solutions available to people. I think if you take just the digital signage sector as an example, there's so many software platforms now that I feel sorry for a retailer looking for the right platform. And actually, I think it's incumbent on people like Beaver Group to explain and justify the context of the technology and what value it will bring in terms of pound and pence. That return on investment argument is real, and it's the one that drives the interaction between the retail business and the AV industry. And without that, there's no real justification for doing it.
It's interesting you should mention the agency element because, I've seen a couple of companies now, consultancy come agencies, who seem to be now sitting in between the end user and the integrator. And they're articulating end user requirements, and they are incredibly knowledgeable about the technology and the integrator needs, and they're acting as a sort of conduit between. They're in between now. I've seen this at eBay. I've seen this at a couple of other companies as well, where they're sitting in almost like the end user and managing the whole planning, design, and implementation of the AV install.
I think that's because when it's a corporate business, you can tend to cookie cut the solutions between one corporate business and another corporate business. They tend to have fairly similar objectives and fairly similar users, and those users and their consumption of the media and the content and the AV requirements tend to be very similar, and so you can utilize that same experience as an integrator across those different companies. When it comes to retailers, they all do their own thing and they all have their own systems, and it's actually the internal knowledge of those systems that drives the selection and the laser focus of the right technology choice that then drives the success of those projects. So I think the consultants actually have quite an important role to play, and people like us are spending much more time with our retail clients to really get under the skin of how they operate their business. We talked about it earlier, that one of the questions that we ask at the very beginning is, what are your pain points? Where does it hurt you most? And how can we alleviate those pain points? If you could do anything, what would it be? These are the questions that lead into the solutions.
Perhaps you could understand the client's business in a way and articulate their requirements better than they can in certain instances, especially when you've got different departments, all not, I mean, it's probably unkind to say they're not talking to each other, but they are more than
they do silo.
occupied.
It's definitely true. They do silo. So you end up with the marketing team running with their marketing objectives, but they're not really driven by the operational requirements of the business, and they're not focused in the same way that the technology and the IT teams are. And trying to bridge those is one of our daily challenges that we work hard to do. But then you add value, and then you become an asset to the whole business, and you tend to become the more consistent part of the AV day-to-day, because people will come and go from these organisations, especially in retail, a lot more rapidly. So if you are the incumbent supplier of a technology solution that is a problem solver, then actually you have ongoing year-on-year value, and you're much more leaned on for how can we fix this problem. So there's a growth opportunity there for those relationships.
Yes, this silo thing is not unusual to retail. I remember an interview with Post Office a long time ago. So what are you doing? It's, I'm in retail, I'm in logistics, I'm in distribution. Not one of them has said I'm here to deliver a letter, which is the overall raison d'etre of what they were supposed to be doing. I said, no one's got an overview of what they're doing here. No one does know from beginning to end sort of thing. And I think a lot of business can get like that unless you've got a vision from the top and it permeates and trickles down. But it's being unkind to retail. It's so complex, so fast moving.
But people don't think about the customer.
Changing, aren't
they? I think so much effort is put into the product, the campaigns, the distribution of the campaigns, the time frames for those campaigns. They're actually thinking about what the customer wants when they're stood in a queue, if there is a queue, or if they're in a retail environment. How are they feeling? What are they looking for? What experience are they looking for? How are they going to return back to that brand? What's their experience when they've left the store? What communications are going to happen to them because of the activities they took in that store environment? All of that needs to be factored into that AV experience that we're trying to talk about from a technology perspective.
But what came out clear this morning was getting back to basics, making sure that the basic retail business works efficiently, and then
some stock,
and then
you've got some stock of the things you want to sell.
And then instead of experience, think of expectations.
Yeah.
Make sure you're managing the expectations properly, and then start to gradually move on to create an experience, an expectation leading on to an experience on beyond that. I do wonder if they're doing far too much too quickly in some of these installs that actually can get off kilter quite quickly. And then you start to lose continuity.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it can be easy to be drawn into the fluffier side of what you can do with AV and technology. And sometimes actually it's our job to pull the customer back and say, just focus on the core objectives. Get those right, much as the retailers were telling us today. Get your core objectives delivered and then worry about the rest of it, because you can get sidetracked in the
it's so easy to be sucked in by
stuff.
Something that's quite seductive, which may tempt the customer temporarily, but it's frightening
Transient.
how quickly they move on into something else, and therefore you're stuck with an investment.
If it's not influencing a sale, if it's not nudging a customer to make a purchase, then really it's going to struggle to have any lasting value, both to the customer and to the business. And we're all about making sure that you're adding the value to that customer experience, because you've got to want to look at it. If you take a corporate environment as a good example, you can't just push corporate content all day long. You have to be talking about things that people want to see as well. And it's not to say they don't want to see the corporate content, it's just that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon it is about the travel status, the rainbow boards, the roads, the rail networks. At lunchtime it's around lunch. It's also about talking about the beers on a Friday afternoon for Sally's birthday, or the new babies that have been born to the company, or the new starters. And that much more human interest stuff is where you get much more engagement within a corporate environment. In a retailer, it is much harder to do, because frankly people don't really care if the team are going to go out for a beer on a Friday afternoon. But you do need to be thinking about how you add value to the interaction you're having. In a QSR environment, it's much easier. You sell people products that they want to buy, and you tell them what's there to be bought, and you make it appealing so that they don't have to think too much. And I think it's that reduction of thinking time that's one of the major advantages that technology can bring in the retail space. We are all fundamentally lazy. Well, I am anyway.